Oh, okay. I keep getting weird error messages. This is the Archons, man. I'm telling you. It's got to be. You know what Archon means? It means Lord or ruler. You know what a monarch is? A mono-archon. On the community tab, I asked this week what it is that you guys wanted me to cover on the Sunday Live. And had the opportunity to vote for Narcissism, CPTSR, or the Agenda to Enslave Humanity, or Alchemy and Spirituality. And people overwhelmingly voted for the Agenda to Enslave Humanity and Alchemy and Spirituality. And Narcissism and CPTSR got a very, very low rating on this week's poll. I didn't schedule this live. I apologize for that. As synchronicity would have it, I actually ended up going to Derby today to meet with Gareth Icke, who is David Icke's son, to do an interview for David Icke's new website, which is called Iconic. And it looks like I'll be doing some more work with them over the next year, which is really cool, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. One of the things that came up today was actually a crossover between my sort of past, psychological self-protection, the study of narcissism and psychopathy, and the notion of people who want to take control. We have this adorbs question that people come out with, trying to be smart, which is, who is they? Who is this they that you're speaking of? Well, there's not just one they, there's multiple theys. But as I was driving down, I started to think about the relationship between certain types of people and how they want to operate in the world, and how there could be a division between human beings. It's just a hypothesis. And this is bearing in mind, this is a hypothesis that comes off a vision I had when I took acid when I was 18, which was a vision that showed me there was groovy cats in the world, and they were like foxy cat people, and then there was nasty reptilian creatures in the world, and they were not nice, and they didn't know much about empathy and compassion. They just hadn't evolved to that point. And that the people, bear with me, the people who have more of this primal DNA have less of a tendency towards compassion. They have less of a natural instinct to empathy. Like, empathy just does not come naturally to them. And that, of course, if you're more primal and you're less frontal lobe, and you're more back in the amygdala, you're back in the oldest parts of the brain, you're back in the parasympathetic nervous system, you're back in fight or flight, and you're more in your lizard brain, you're going to be more interested in dominance hierarchies. In fact, you will see the world through a lens of dominance hierarchies. And the only thing you'll be interested in doing is climbing a dominance hierarchy ladder. And it's not about fault, it's not about blame, it's not about anything other than just reflecting back that this could be a thing that is happening, as some people at a genetic level are more concerned with dominance hierarchies and less concerned with empathy. This removes trauma for a moment. It removes trauma for a second. And what that would mean, if you put it into a system, is if you have a bunch of people who are very empathic and compassionate, who are technically more advanced because they're more in the frontal lobe. We've evolved, if you look at the side of somebody's head, we've evolved forwards and backwards into the skull in brain evolution terms, away from more forwards than backwards. There is a bit of development at the back, but where your spine, if you take your hand and you go to the top of your spine, and then you go to the base of your skull and you push in there, your spine extends up. There's a part that goes straight from the spine into the brain. This is the oldest part of the brain. And then evolution built on top of that, slightly behind it, slightly above it, but mainly in front of it. And the more in the front you are, the more empathic, more compassionate, and more concerned with connection you'll be. And the more in the lizard brain you are, the less any of that would mean anything to you. It's not even that you don't care about it. It's just you're speaking a foreign language right now. I don't know empathy. I don't know compassion. I don't know these weird things that are so messy. And the only thing, therefore, that you would be fixated on would be to take, because your survival modality is still on fight or flight. It's still primal. It's not rooted in cooperation. Frontal lobe, empathy, compassion is for connection, is for networking, is for connectivity, is for cooperation. So survival is survival of the group. Survival is the survival of the interrelatedness and the success of the group, of the tribe. Whereas if I'm back in the lizard brain, it's primal, it's fight or flight. There isn't anybody else. I'm not evolved enough to see that there's other people. I'm not evolved enough to really understand beyond a vague intellectual notion, cerebral notion, that other people have the same drives as me, the same sorts of fears and concerns, and when they're cold, they shiver, and when the sun hits their skin, they feel, I don't get that because it's just me. It's primal. So you put the human frontal lobe types in a system with these more lizard brain primal types who are focused on dominance hierarchies, climbing the ladder of dominance hierarchies, and their modality of survival is combat, where the human's modality of survival is cooperation. Here's two things that we can say, I think, philosophically. We can assert these as to be true. It would seem to be true. Number one, the more human ones, the warmer, more empathic ones, they're in the frontal lobe, so they're more evolved. They're more advanced. They're further along in evolution. And the ones who are back in the lizard brain, they're less evolved. They're less advanced, and they're therefore less advantaged. And yet, at the same time, we can also assert that in a battle between somebody who's focused on the consequences of their actions to others and someone who does not care a jot about that, it's the lizard that's going to win. And if you're talking about large groups of people and who's going to end up seeking to be the leaders of those large groups of people, it's going to be the lizards. Because there is no questioning, there's no second guessing, there's no what's the consequence of this, what would it mean for other people if I do this? It's just now, give me power, now. And the rest is words and fluff, and they don't understand it and they don't get it, which I think is why psychopaths are often marked for having a shallow affect and sentimentality. That sentimentality is probably a practiced and failed attempt at authentic human emotion, which they're simply not capable of. Have empathy for me as I change hands, because that hand is starting to hurt. So, of course, you'd end up in a system where the people with the least empathy are in charge because they want to be in charge. Why would an empathic, warm-blooded mammalian, when faced with the needs of a reptile, why would you want to be in charge? What for? So, to me, as much as the more lizard brain types don't get empathy and don't get compassion, I don't really understand the drive to be in charge. To me, that sounds like a lot of pressure, man. Because why is it pressure? because of this burden of my more advanced hardware and software, which is concerned with connectivity, networking, cooperation, and this thing that we may as well call compassion or empathy, the capacity to see the world through the other person's eyes. If I'm in charge, right off the bat, I'm no genius, but I'm bright enough to know that if I'm in charge, the larger the group of people I'm in charge of, the more power I have. And the more power I have, the more likely I am to do unintentional harm, just by mistake. Imagine if you suddenly were like, it was like something from a Japanese manga, and you got hit with a laser ray from space, and you just became like a giant, and all you wanted to do was blow your nose. You'd probably kill like a bunch of people just reaching for well, there wouldn't be any tissues for you. What would you use as a tissue? If you were a giant, a massive piece of cloth is what you would need. And you would accidentally stumble around and kill people and destroy buildings and hurt things, right? So that's what would immediately, if you say, I'll give that person power, I'm like, oh, something bad's going to happen here. Slavoj Žižek said because Slavoj Žižek we all know is a philosopher, but he's actually trained as a psychoanalyst. And he said he never wanted to do psychoanalysis because of the fear that he likes to joke around and say crazy stuff. And he said, one day I could say something, tell a joke, make some ironic smile. It would be misinterpreted. And then that vulnerable person who's come to me for psychoanalysis could take it the wrong way. And I could induce self-harm or suicide. I would never want that responsibility. So in a sense, from a systems point of view, we should never let the people who want to be in charge be in charge. We should only force the people who don't want to be in charge. They're the ones who should be forced to be in charge. I'm sorry about this. This is an uncomfortable position for me. I might have to change to a different location in a moment. So what does that lead to? I think it leads to what we have. So we're going to talk. I haven't planned anything. And I didn't schedule it because it's from where I live down to Derby is like a 2.5 hour drive. The rain was bad, got caught in traffic and all that. But what I thought I'd give you something, because I said we'd do a live on Sunday, is just reflect on the idea that this world as we see it, I'm not talking about the simulation theory, and I'm not actually talking about the Gnostics and the Gnostic worldview at this point. But it's a variation on a theme. That this is a world created by what it would be called in psychiatry, narcissists and psychopaths. Those people who are marked by a total lack of empathy and a drive to power. We know that the world, now we can see based on what I just said, hopefully I didn't ramble too much, that's logic. It's logical to assume that we're living in a world that is built and run by psychopaths and narcissists because nobody else would want the job and nobody else would feel the entitlement to impose their will on an infinite number of people, which is what we have, by the way. In human history, imagine the balls and the arrogance of these people who have just said, me, the little pathetic, sock-wearing, pooping, dumb, daydreaming human that I am, I know how everybody in my generation and in my country and in the countries around me should live in this generation and in generations to come into the future. Can you scale and simulate in your mind the level of arrogance that takes? To assume you don't even know, nobody knows. You barely know how to blow your own nose because you're a human being. But you dare to have the temerity to go out and shout from the hilltops, I know how everyone should live. And they don't stop there, these narcissistic psychopaths. They say, if you defy me, I'll kill you and imprison your family. I live in Europe. We remember, Stalin, Hitler. It's not that long ago. It's not that long ago. Karadzic. It's not that long ago. I mean, Karadzic, that's the Yugoslav wars, the Bosnian genocide. It's 1993. It's just not that long ago. And that's another psychoanalyst, by the way. Karadzic is I think Karadzic was or was it Milosevic? One of them was a psychoanalyst who was trained in New York. And you just think, what arrogance, what evil. To me, it is totally evil just to go to the first level and say, I know how everybody should live. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't know how you should. Look at a Hitler. Look at a Stalin. Look at a Karadzic and Milosevic. You're riddled with neuroses. You're a bloody sexual deviant. You're a drug addict. Your life doesn't work. And you dare go to level 1 and say, I know how everybody should live. But you don't stop there. You then say, you must all obey me. I know how we should live, and I know how generations of humans who I've never met and never will meet should live. And then you go to, and if you disagree with me, I will kill you. And if you disagree with me, I will also imprison and possibly kill your family and people who know you. The problem I'm pointing at here is not alien to the narcissism community. It's not alien to the narcissism and psychopathy community. It's actually the same issue. It's that when you are faced with that level of entitlement and arrogance, it is so, I'm going to have to use the word alien again inside of 2 minutes. I do apologize. It's so alien to you and it's so alien to me that you go into shock and you can't believe it. We lack the ability to talk in simple terms about this because it's so complicated. In the last few days, I've been talking to people and thinking about the notion of evil and the notion of being an evildoer. And I'm like, I'm back here again. I'm back using, from my childhood, the old Christian terminology. This is evil. This is sin. This is corruption. This is a lack of righteousness. This is a lack of virtue. This is a lack of, most of you watching this know me. You know I don't think of the world this way. But when we used to speak about people being God-fearing, I think it's very hard for us now to understand what that would mean in that time. If you were a good God-fearing Christian, let's say, what that meant was, yes, on one level it meant that you would fear the vengeance of Jehovah, of the Old Testament, the Lord Almighty punishing you for your crimes. But it was also a reference to your humility, that you knew you did not know what God was and that you wouldn't dare to put yourself in a godlike, lord-like, archonic, because archon means lord, position. That it is an affront to nature for you to put yourself at the top of a pyramid and go, I've got the shiny hat and I'm in charge now. It's an affront. It's a total lack of humility. You're overstepping your boundaries. That is what being God-fearing would have meant. Not just the, I'm scared to do sin because Jehovah will, I don't know, have my left nostril plugged with locusts or whatever fun thing Jehovah was feeling like doing that day. You fear God because you have humility. You fear God because you hold the higher power in awe, and you don't dare put yourself in that position. You don't dare declare yourself to be a lord, a master. I know what you should do. How can you know? You're just a woman. You're just a man. You're just a human. You're just a person. You're just another fucking snotty-nosed, leaking, farting, snoring idiot in socks. Shut the fuck up and sit down. Be humble. Be humble. Know your place. This is insane. Now, for people who don't think like that, this is why the recovery takes so long. Because you are galled, you are shocked by the effrontery, the sheer bloody balls of these people to do what they do. So I was asked in the interview today, and I've been asked it every day in different conversations by different people for the last 5 days. If all this is true, how do they get away with the lies? And I'm like, what do you mean get away with the lies? People are so beaten down, stressed out, exhausted, dizzy, turned upside down. Nobody challenges anything now. Or you do. You want to know how they lie? They walk up to people in the face, they grab them by the cheeks and they go, the sky is now down, not up. Water is no longer wet, it's dry. Do you agree? Yes or no? I think you mean yes. Okay, repeat after me. And then they open your mouth. They go, the water is now dry. And they just do that. Just straight to your face. The best way for these, the narcissistic psychopaths to get the job done, straight to your face. Just go straight to your face with a straight lie. And you'll look around and you'll see everybody else is going along with it. And you're so cowed. You're so humiliated. You're so full of toxic shame. You're so into your slave mentality now. You're so riddled with a sense of your own worthlessness, because we all know deep down that we're failing, that we're doing a bad job here, and we've got to do better. We've got to do better than this. And we know it. We fucking know it. We hate it. So then people will hate me for saying it because, oh, I don't want to hear that. So fuck him. If I make him bad, if I make Richard bad, then the message is bad. And no, I'm okay. I can be a slob. I can do nothing. I can be a moral coward. I can do nothing about things I know perfectly well are wrong. I don't need to change. Just hate him. Just tell him he's an idiot. He's just some fucking idiot. Yeah. Okay, that's better. I'll find other people online to agree with me. He's an idiot, isn't he? Oh, he's a narcissist himself. Oh, thank God. Oh, I can hear the relief. I can hear the relief from here. The sigh, oh, thank God. Okay, I've destroyed him. Good. I've destroyed him mentally. Now I don't need to listen. I don't need to change. How could anybody think that that's the right way to live and that's the right way to conduct themselves? It's insane. It's completely insane. But because the humans, or I don't know how to define it, like the people who are more empathic, have that empathy, they take it. They take it. Because a primal thug is going to be a pontificating gentle philosopher in a barroom brawl 100 times out of 100. And we're all cowed, stressed, confused, conflicted. My God, you know, I look around, this is my job, I look around at people and I'm like, the sexual problems, the body image issues, the addictions, the lying, the deceit, we're like a bag. They've turned us, who's they? The people who benefit from it, into a bag of nerves, and so ashamed and so humiliated that we don't fight for ourselves. Because deep down, we're riddled with self-loathing. We don't feel like it's worth doing. We don't feel like it's worth fighting back. And even if it was, we wouldn't know where to start. So how do they lie? Well, if you want an example of a really shit if you want an example of a really shittily put together lie that shows contempt, that is just big dick swinging in your face, rest your balls on the forehead lie, look at the 9/11 Commission report. It defies, you know, a child's reasoning. The official story of 9/11. That's a really good example to hang your hat on. How do they lie? How do they do it? How do they get away with it? 9/11 Commission report. We know that this story is insane. We know that we've changed this story in fundamental ways 50, 60 times. We know that this makes no sense. We know that you're not going to do anything about it. We know that if you try and do anything about it, you won't get hurt. Nobody's going to assassinate you. They'll just laugh at you. They'll just discredit you. They'll just disown you. Okay, the guy's an idiot. This guy's an idiot. This girl's a fantasist. Have you heard what she's talking about? It's nonsense. So, okay. So I have to sit there, get out my spoon and go, The official story, that's what it is. And then I eat it up and I swallow it down and I live knowing that it's a lie and that I've agreed to the lie. But if I disagree with the lie, I'm going to have to change my life. I won't get to watch as much Netflix. I won't get to watch the Kardashians, Love Island, Celebrity Big Brother. I don't get to just scroll through Instagram endlessly. I don't get to wank 5 times in a row over 4K HD porn of any niche I want instantly. Don't get to keep pushing that pleasure button. Don't get to order Uber Eats to my door. Don't get to just be a fucking blob of nothingness. I said to you guys 6 years ago now when I was in Malaysia, the story of the Matrix is great. The only thing that they got wrong is if you watch the Animatrix that tells the story that's slightly before where the Matrix begins, there's a big war. It's kind of like Skynet. It's human versus machine. There'll be no war. They won't need to push us into the pods at a gunpoint. We'll happily get in. We would happily get in today. If they brought out pods that gave you a blue pill life, people would fight in the street to enter them. They already are. That's what this thing is that I'm holding right now. This is a blue pill pod. It's just the first level of it. First, it will be out here and I hold it. Then it will be over one eye. Then it'll be over both eyes. And it's like, God, it's a hassle taking this on and off. Then it will be in my brain. And that'll be it. I'll be podded up. And everybody will fight to be the first to get into those virtual reality pods. I guarantee you that's where we're at. And yet, I am hopeful. Very hopeful. Because, like all narcissistic psychopaths, I think that they have now overplayed their hand. You can abuse. You can drink people's blood. But if you're a parasite, you're supposed to numb the host. If you're a good bat, if you're a good mosquito, you're supposed to numb them. You're supposed to let them sleep while you drink. If you're a little sloppy, you shove your little needle in too many times, maybe you get a bit cranky, you're like, come on, fucking... You stab them up a little bit, make them bleed, you wake them up. And that's what's happening. People are twitching in their pods. Like, oh, some nightmare going on here. And they're waking up. People are waking up. I think it's inevitable now. It's inevitable because they have overplayed their hands, because they're not as smart as they think they are. Isn't that pure psychology? All of you who are au fait, who are black belts in narcissism and psychopathy, you know this is standard operational procedure. They always overplay their hands. Why? Because they look at the target, they look at the host, and they think, this person's an idiot. This person's an idiot. Yeah. Maybe to you, they are. Maybe their empathy looks like foolishness. This is what psychopaths have said, by the way, in interviews in prison. This is what psychopaths, serial killers, serial rapists, serial torturers, gangsters, this is what they say when they're interviewed in prison. I look at normal people and I see idiots. That's what Al Capone said about anybody who ever worked a day in their life. Crumbs, Al Capone said. You're all crumbs. You work for a living. You're nothing. You're nobody. You're idiots. Only fools work for a living. Only fools do the right thing. Because to a psychopath, it doesn't make any sense. So they think that we're stupid. And in a way, they're nearly right. It's naivety. It's an excessive conscientiousness. It's giving everybody their day in court. This is what we're like. Oh, give them their day in court. Oh, maybe they're traumatized. Do you think they might be hurting? Yeah, maybe. But if somebody's chopping my arms and legs off to eat, I don't really care whether it's childhood trauma that's caused them to do it. I should just stop them. Without pontificating over why they're chopping my arms and legs off. Where did they get the tools? What's their motivation? Did they start at my knee or my hip? No, you stop them straight away by any means necessary. You do it for yourself, and you certainly should be doing it for your family. You certainly should be doing it for your children. You see parasites attaching to your children, you should kill the enemy. You should kill the person who's attacking your children or your spouse or your family members. That's natural. That's the way humans should be. But we don't now. We just let it happen. We just let it happen. We let horrible, awful, evil enter the minds of children. I mean, well, everybody else is doing it. I'm confused now. Is it right or wrong to teach an 8-year-old about penetrative vaginal sex? I'm like, are you mad? Of course it's wrong to teach a child. What? That's insane. It's insane. It's like this thing they've got in Texas where the adults are holding a court case and having an argument about whether to surgically remove a boy's penis, an 8-year-old boy's penis, and turn him into a girl. It'll never happen. I know it'll never happen, but it's going to court, and it should not be going to court. Jesus, not in America, which is a religious country. For those of you who don't live there and haven't, it's a very religious place, devoutly religious place. And not in Texas. My God. This court case is taking place in Texas. And everybody's like, oh, don't mention it. You don't want to be called transphobic. You can call me what you want. As long as the little boy's penis stays attached to his body, you can call me any fucking name you like. He's 8 years old and they want to turn it. They're debating whether he should be turned into a fucking girl. Which, by the way, why am I even saying that? They're not debating turning him into a girl. No, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. They're debating mutilating his genitals and then changing them as a simulation for a girl's genitals, because you cannot make a boy a girl. It doesn't happen, never has, and cannot happen. Now we use our state management techniques to relax. Nah, but I mean, I can joke about that and I can make it a joke, but I shouldn't, because you know what? That's evil. Pure evil. Evil. That's evil. The fact that people are confused and they don't know which side of the argument should I be on. The side of the argument that doesn't involve chopping off children's genitals. Generally, that's the one I stay on. Leave kids' parts alone. Don't bring razor blades towards children's genitals. That's my line in the sand. I know, I'm crazy. What an extremist I am. That's my line in the sand. No razors to children's genitals. Wow, you fucking trailblazer. I know, I'm a crazy guy. They're going to be like, this conservative. I knew Richard Grannon was secretly a right-wing nationalist. He doesn't believe in butchering children's genitals. What a fucking lunatic. Deplatform him straight away. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it. I can't sit back and say nothing. I can't just sit back and just watch this. Like, I'm looking to the left and right mirror going, are we all still okay? Are we all still okay with this? Is anybody else going to say anything? Because if we don't say it now, when do we say? Like, at what point do we go, this is crazy? This doesn't make any fucking sense. Little boys being given Ritalin, or what do you call it in America? Adderall, which is like no, it's not even 2. It's like the next molecule along from crack. From crack. Look it up. That's not conspiracy theory. That is chemical fact. Ritalin and Adderall are very, very chemically similar to crack cocaine, and they have a very similar effect on the body. I don't want to make you feel bad. A lot of parents watch this, and I know a lot of parents have been told your kids need Ritalin, your kids need Adderall. They have no idea what that will do long term. They have zero idea long term what that will do to your children. Anyway, I'm stuck on that now. What I was trying to say is, it is not human for us to sit back and let evil to be done to ourselves. It's not human for us to sit back and let pure evil. Don't let them confuse you with all the words and the narrative. I've done it. Okay, sometimes psychiatric labels help. Sometimes they obfuscate, they confuse. It's evil. It's evil. Don't let people do evil shit to your kids. Just don't do it. We've got to draw the line in the sand somewhere, and I think that that's probably a good one. Is to say, nah, not to the kids. Me, fuck it. Maybe, not the kids. Not the kids. That's where we've got to draw the line. So the question supposed to be, what's the agenda? Well, wherever you see us going, that's what's supposed to be. Again, it patterns directly for narcissism. So at the at the micro level, where you see a narcissistically abusive relationship between two people, it's the same thing that we have with our governments and with the people who are in charge of us. So the rule from narcissism is whatever you're feeling, if you're in a narcissistically abusive relationship, you should assume that that's what the narcissist or the psychopath wants you to feel. Similarly with this, you'd say, well, where are we up to? Well, we seem to be confused. Then that's the agenda. We seem to be divided. That's the agenda. We seem to be more racist than we were 20 years ago, which is another thoroughly fucking mind-boggling fact. But if we are, that's the agenda. We're more frightened. That's the agenda. We're more whatever it is. Depressed, anxious, mental health issues through the roof. Through the fucking roof. And let me just say this here and now, because I did a meetup on Saturday, and this notion came up of me normalizing mental health issues. And at first I was a bit defensive, and then I was like, no, actually, I do want to normalize mental health issues. What I want to normalize is the idea that if you're a human being on this planet, it's traumatic. You will sometimes be depressed. You will sometimes be anxious. You will be emotionally dysregulated. That's just human life. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It doesn't mean you have anything wrong with you. And if you're anxious and depressed in the times that we're living in, all that means is you're intelligent enough to see how fucked up things are. And if you're angry about it, it's not like, oh, I'm angry. Give me a pill so that the anger is numbed out. Maybe you should be angry. Maybe you should be sad. Maybe you should be feeling some feelings about this, because this is not good and this is not necessary. This is not necessary. We don't have to live like this. We absolutely don't have to live like this. It's way more hassle and more work and more pain to live the way we're living now than to live in other alternative modalities. Think about it. Why do we live like this? Why are we rampant consumers? Why are we so focused on things? Why are we so materialistic? Why do we see life as only about something we push in one end and shit out the other, including relationships now? It's so cute. People say to me, why are you single? And I'm like, have you looked at reality recently? I don't want to be eaten shat out by somebody. I don't want to be a part of somebody else's narcissistic wank fantasy. Thanks very much for the offer, but I'm going to opt out right now. Until everybody just calms the fuck down and wakes the fuck up, I'm going to sit this round out, thanks. I'm not playing that game. And I'm not bringing kids into this, me personally. I'm not saying you're bad if you do. Whatever you want to do, that's cool. But me personally, I'm not bringing kids into this. Not until this calms down. We've got to figure this out, because this is just getting worse and worse. Is it not? Okay, so if you put people in a more and more stressful scenario, what happens to the people in that stressful scenario? They get anxious, man. They don't feel good. They feel agitated. They get upset. And then they repress those feelings of agitation and anger and sadness, and then they're depressed. And then after the depression comes the dissociation to cope with the depression, and with the dissociation comes addiction. And guess what? People are really easy to control when they're dissociated and depressed. And they're really easy to sell to when they're agitated, dissociated, and depressed. They're really easy to tax. They're really easy to exploit. They're really easy to draw energy from when they're dissociated, humiliated, and depressed. I kind of feel like this became a bit of a rant. That was not my intention. Take a breath. Again, I say, I'm hopeful. This has to fall. This won't continue like this. It will not continue like this. Not now. Not now. This is the end of the beginning. The first domino will fall, and then it will just all happen of its own accord. And I'm looking forward to that. If anybody has any questions, now would be a good time to ask them. They can be about anything at all that you like. There's no direction on your questions. Make them one sentence long and have them end. Not visible in chat room. Not the only one. I can see you. A good rant. Thank you. Loving your beautiful rants. Thank you. It is the coronavirus. What that caused my rant. Oh, the Richard Grannon Russian channel is here. Здравствуйте, товарищ. If you speak Russian, there's a channel being run by my friends in Russia where they're translating a lot of my stuff. They're dubbing it, so you can watch it dubbed in Russian. Okay. Chevy Girl says, thank you for your rant. More people need to speak out. October 2020, the dominoes will begin to fall. What's your favourite curry, Richard, says Cara Copland. I like the really, really calorie-dense ones that have cream and nuts in them that were invented, I believe, in Scotland. Your masalas, your pasandas and all of that. I can't really eat that stuff right now. But that's my favourite. Lisa says, can you talk about attachment disorders? Yeah, sure. When a child is seeking to individuate and separate from their parents, if it's not been done in a way that's healthy by parents with boundaries, then the child will end up with an attachment disorder for the rest of their lives, which will manifest in intimate relationships that mirror the intimacy of a relationship with a parent early in life. Lindsay says, do you ever get sick of talking about narcissists? It depends on the sincerity of the question. There can be no doubt, and I know that you guys who follow me already know this, that narcissism hunting is like an online hobby. And so now that the way the forums are used and the YouTube channels are used, there are sincere people who really just want help and they just want to get on with their lives. But there are a lot of people who are not sincere, and it's kind of like a thing that they do. It's fun. It's like playing video games or, I don't know, sharing pictures of kittens, or it's like an interest. It's a hobby. It's a pastime. And when I get the feeling that I'm speaking to somebody who's not looking, I like to speak to people. I'm here to help people who sincerely want help and they want to get better and they want to get on with their lives. I'm a life coach. I'm not like, that's it. Like, that's why it's called the Spartan Life Coach. So when I feel it's insincere or a bit self-indulgent or a bit like, sometimes people treat me like a psychic reader and they'll be like, I want you to tell me what's going on in my best friend's stepmother's relationship. And I'm like, I'm not fucking psychic. If they're not here, I can't tell you. If I haven't spoken to them, how the hell am I going to know? And anyway, I'm not a clinician. I'm not qualified to diagnose cluster B personality disorders. But if somebody's sincere, I'm happy to talk about it because it's an intellectually challenging subject, which has a lot of intricacy to it. You need to get into the mechanics of it, the history of it. There's like a sociological, a biological element to it. It's pretty cool. So that if it's sincere, then no, I don't get sick of it. Lucy says, thank you, Richard. You're a voice of sanity. You made a lot of sense. It's all coming down. Keep the faith. Absolutely. Carrie says, my brilliant niece is on medicine for ADHD. I said that the only thing that is wrong with her is that we can't afford to send her. Oh, I lost you. There we go. Got you back. To a Montessori or Waldorf school. My brother feels terrible. Yeah, it's a real shame, especially it's a shame when it happens to any child, but especially when you can see it's happening to children who are, in England, in the British education system, these kids would be called gifted and talented, which is a nice way of saying they're really clever. They're really bright. They're just born bright. They're just lucky. They're genetically gifted with a higher IQ. And very often they are put on meds because they're bored in class. And they're bored in class because they're brighter than the teacher. They know more they're smarter than the teacher. So they have in their perceptual filters, like, I have a stupid person asking me to learn stupid things, talking in a stupid tone of voice. I'm going to kick off. And I'm like, well, yep, that's what a child's going to do because you're boring them. It's not the child's fault that you're dull and don't know how to do your job. Do you have someone to translate your videos into Portuguese? I don't at the moment. Wilhelm, you stop that, you. I'm not opening that tin of worms. Okay. Any opinion on veganism? No, not really. I was listening to Pavel Tatsaluin. I can't say his name right. He's a great strength coach, Russian guy. He was talking on Joe Rogan recently, and Joe tried to get him to talk about nutrition, and he just refused. He said, I don't understand it. The science of nutrition is still... I only found this out recently myself. Like, apparently the science of nutrition is still one of these things that's in its infancy. We don't really know how the body processes food very well. And, in recent years, I've developed a wheat allergy. And what I would say is it seems like everybody has their own unique needs. I've seen people, I've spoken to people who've told me that they really struggled on a vegan diet. They got very sick, they got very weak. And then other people tell me it's the best thing they've ever done. So it's complex, man. And you should do what is best for you and try and do as little harm as you can. Try and keep your karma clean. Light, all we eat is light. That's true. We're converting sunlight. Okay. When will you be in California again? I hope I'll be in California again in May. I'll predominantly be there to play with my sister's babies, my nephews, but I won't be doing coaching this time, but I will run some seminars out of Encinitas and San Diego. What type of woman who is not a victim marries a narc? I don't know. Can you make that like a multiple choice question? Give me 5 types of women and I'll tell you. Raw Milk says, meat. Alrighty. Wow. A lot of opinions about veganism here. Well, I don't really give a fuck. You just put in your mouth whatever you want. It's nothing to do with me. You won't get me to have an opinion on that. Epidemic wheat intolerance presently. It's the hybrid wheat. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Thank you. Look into Ayurveda, eating for your specific genetics and constitution. No one size fits all. Didn't know that Ayurveda did that. Thank you. That's helpful. Okay. Would you be up for doing a documentary about how bachata fights depression? Yes, absolutely. I would. There was somebody invited me to do some mental health research and its relationship with Latin dancing. I don't have that much time at the moment. Time is like my most precious resource. So if you were going to organize it and you wanted me to voice over it, or you wanted to shoot with me for like a day or a couple of days, I'd be happy to do it. I can't get much more involved than that. But yeah, I certainly would be interested in that. Can you suggest any counselors, says Kathy Rennick? Well, I have Terry and Steve, who I trained. They're both very good. They understand all the stuff to do with CPTSD and everything to do with narcissism and psychopathy. They've both read Sam Vaknin's book and they've both read Pete Walker's book. I'll put their emails down below after I finish. Elaine says, will you be doing more vids about the business side of things? Yes. This year I will be talking more about business, particularly helping entrepreneurs make more money. I think a lot of the shame and humiliation that I mentioned earlier is people struggling to sustain themselves because they're just not making enough money. And when you're scraping to get by, it's really uncomfortable. It's a very unpleasant experience. Unfortunately, when I was in Malaysia, I think I've already told the story on the channel. There was several times where I was so broke, and this is only maybe a bit longer, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. Didn't have anything to eat. And Malaysia, food is cheap, man. If you're happy to go and eat at the local mamak, you can get a meal for like £2, and I couldn't even afford to do that. And it's not good for your self-esteem. It's not good for your self-image. So yes, I will be talking more about business, but not here. The video I released today is a one-off. I have a different YouTube channel that's called Richard Grannon Business Coaching, and that's where that will be going. I'm working with a friend of mine in Sweden on that one. All of that will be free. I'm just going to put I'm going to put a lot of information out for free this year. And just, to help people, because you never know, you might get hit by a bus. I won't get hit by a bus. I won't get hit by a bus. I'll have a long and happy life. But I'm just saying, you don't want to die with your best songs inside of you. Simon says, Richard Grannon, what is the psychology of virtue signaling? Are they trying to erase the idea of the bad self by projecting it onto others, but on a mass scale? Yes, possibly. I think there's an element of scapegoating. You remember that scapegoating originally was an ancient Jewish practice where the tribe would put their sins, their wrongdoings, their lustful thoughts into the goat and then send it out into the desert to die of thirst and exposure. And there is a strong drive in humans to try and push their internal evil onto a scapegoat, onto a designated target, and then kill that target. And then we in our primitive primal mindset think, oh, if we kill the target that bears the sins, then the sins are like eaten up. It's like a sin sewage system. Virtue signaling lies in that mode of thinking, in that I suspect it is religious and comes from a similar primal, religious, magical mindset. When I was discussing, I actually did a video on virtue signaling with Pierre XO, and he put the idea in my head of it being like a religious thing. It's about an orthodoxy. We're trying to adhere to a new orthodoxy, but it's not religious based. It's a cultural orthodoxy. And I think the religion, if we could call it that, it's an ideological religion, is now happiness, but the happiness of the Western capitalist world, which would be rooted in indulgence and being the perfect consumer. I am the perfect consumer. I look good. I'm pretty. I take beautiful holidays. I eat the best food. I drink the best drinks. Look, I've taken a picture of my food. It's in a beautiful restaurant. It's special food. You know it is because somebody stuck a fucking leaf and a twig on it. And I can't eat it before I've shown you that I'm going to eat it. I don't know why they don't put pictures of their poos up afterwards. Did you see that picture of the food I ate last night? Here's my poo. Why don't they do that? I'm wondering when that's going to happen. It will. What was your question? Virtue signaling. So we're trying to show that we're better than everybody else. It's still, it's religious. It's about orthodoxy. It's about purity. And it's still dominance hierarchy. It's actually, what I think has happened is the people who run the world, the narcissistic psychopaths, the people coming from the lizard brain, the people with less empathy and compassion have, because they run things, they've enforced their twisted vision of the world onto everyone. Like a psychopathic parent would put their psychopathic worldview onto their innocent children, because you can't escape the environment that you're raised in. You live inside of this thing called a culture, which is like living inside of a toxic family home or a toxic cult. So their sick ideas become your sick ideas. Good is bad, up is down. Loyalty is weakness, and to exploitation is strength. Narcissism is strength. I've been saying this for years. Narcissism is a cultural value now. We now have people talk about unvalues. I've heard people talk about junk values, but for a long time, so at least and since 2010, not pure, self-indulgent, obscene, pornographic narcissism, and I mean pornographic as in pointless for its own sake. Narcissism is something that is applauded. And it's like unconsciously we've accepted this this implicit injunction that to win the game of getting attention for its own sake, with no other meaning, with no other boundary, with no other symbolic gesture, like you won the UFC, or you ran the 100 meters really quickly, or you baked a really cool looking cake. It's nothing. It's just for its own sake. That's there now. And virtue signaling is a part of that. We're trying to win the dominance hierarchy game because we, the empathic humans, have had our empathy crushed through trauma and through conditioning, and all of our most narcissistic base tendencies pulled out of us and expanded and magnified. So yes, that's what virtue signaling is. Showing off is what we used to call it in school. Bum, bum, bum. Seriously says, what do you know about ideas of reference? Can they be overcome? Ideas of reference can be an emotional flashback. So if you can reduce the emotional flashbacks, I would hope that your ideas of reference would diminish with that as well. Manuela says, I love that live with Pierre. Thank you, Manuela. PGTT says, curious as to what topics you're discussing with David Icke. Well, I've been talking to his sons, similar topics to what we're talking about here. Very, very similar. Are you going to visit Sweden? I used to live in Malmo, you know. I might go back to Sweden one day. I liked it there. Yes, why not? I don't know when though. Razor says, I started the old flashback mnemonic 2 weeks ago. So should I switch to the new one or wait until I hit 30 days? Thanks. Look, it's up to you. If it was me, I would intersperse both during the course of one day, but I am quite greedy for new information. I like it. So would that stress you out? If yes, you stick to the old one. Are you making progress with the old one? Do your 30 days. It's good. It's really good. The old one is good and it works. If you can tolerate newness and you can tolerate two different things at the same time, do them both. If that suits you and doesn't stress you out and makes you feel comfortable, because the new one has a subtle focus on overcoming codependency. And I do think overcoming codependency is key to resolving the CPTSR issues of emotional flashbacks as well. W. Johnson says, why are you wearing your coat? I've been out all day, driving to Derby and back. And so I've been out of this apartment, so the heating's not been on, and it's it says it's 3 degrees C outside, but it's a very, you know, there's different 3 degrees C, right? This is a bitter one. It's a cold night, so it's cold in here. What's your mission? Says Maria. I don't know, man. To do some good, or maybe less than that. Maybe not even to do some good. Maybe just reduce some suffering to feel like I've contributed in a way that was meaningful, and to leave a legacy that's not poisonous. That'd be a good start. So people could say, oh, I did a thing that guy said and it actually helped me, you know. That's enough. And that's all they need to do. They don't be like, yes, it was amazing and I loved it, and then cry. They just go, I did a thing that guy said. It was all right. Maria says, good answer, respect. Thank you. Talk about cranial sacral for PTSD. I've not tried it yet. But if it helps some people, then that would be great. Because you can wear whatever, whenever. Are your socks on? My socks are on. These are new. I love new socks. I got new, they're long, and they're for sport. But I wore them today for the drive. They're great. And they still feel good. And I'm very happy that I have feet. I'm very happy that I have socks on them. Thank you, feet. Thank you, socks. Thank you, question. Can we stop psychos from being in charge of us? Yes, but we're going to have to choose to feed the better wolves of our natures. We're going to have to choose to be disciplined. We're not going to be able to take the easy path anymore. We're not going to be able to just, you know, take the path of least resistance anymore. We are going to have to resist. We're going to have to act with some self-discipline. We're going to have to do things that we've never done before. We're going to have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And we're going to have to do better. We really are going to have to do better. There's not going to be an easy way out of this. Thanks for the Fortress channel, says Laura. You're very welcome. I'm very proud of it, and I'm very happy that it's there. It makes me feel good. Do you think there is a difference between strong cultural norm behavior and narcissistic abuse? Yes, but I hear you. I hear you. Like if somebody is covertly trying to enforce cultural norms blindly, it will feel like gaslighting. It will feel like the imposition of somebody's will. So yeah, there would be a crossover. You overcame codependency when? Could you give 3 signs? No. I would say I overcame emotional flashbacks and a lot of CPTSD. I think I'm still in process with my codependency issues. And who knows? I mean, like the emotional flashbacks, I don't go into emotional flashbacks now, but that there wouldn't be some trauma in my life. There, but for the grace of God, go I. It's me touching wood. Who knows, man? But so far, so good. So maybe I should just say I'm happy with the progress I've made. But codependency is still something I'm working on. Stephen says, you're helping people see that they're suffering and helping them heighten the awareness that they can choose to stop participating in their life as a suffering event. Yeah, I hope so. I hope I'm doing that. That would be good. Discipline equals freedom, says the Green Revolt. I agree. Ever tried cold water therapy? Well, I used to do a lot of Systema, and before that Aikido, and in both of those martial arts styles, you are encouraged to dump cold water on your head. You're encouraged to submerge in cold water, but both Aikido and Systema, they're particularly keen on you taking cold water first through the head and then down the body. I don't know if that counts as cold water therapy, but I have done a lot of that. And yes, I would say that it makes you feel better, and you definitely get sick less if you're doing that regularly. Instead of the wolf, can I become the dragon? Yes, but only you, Nick Bravo. Is loneliness an important part of healing from codependency? Well, loneliness is a feeling. Probably is an emotion of feeling uncomfortable and feeling sad because you are on your own. That's loneliness. And feeling feelings that are uncomfortable and sad are part of processing your emotions. They'll lead to emotional maturity. You cannot really overcome codependency without dealing with your emotions and attaining to a certain level of emotional maturity. So to that extent, the answer to your question would be yes, I suppose. Systema breathing. And then punched in the face and punched in the chest and punched in the leg, because that's what the comrades want you to do. Horosho, tavarish, punch in face, punch in chest, beating all the time. Russian martial art style, beat. That's what they said to me when I did Systema. Seriously, no, they didn't. Long Reach One says, I'm sorry, but I don't trust Vaknin, but I am often wrong, lol. You shouldn't trust Sam Vaknin. He is a diagnosed narcissistic psychopath, and he has told you that. So don't trust him. Okay. I think I just made up a little song about Systema. That means I'm probably tired. I probably should go soon. Let me take a couple more questions, and then it will be time for bed. I'm reading a book. I'm finishing The Courage to be Disliked. It's only taken me 3 months to get there. I stopped reading about a month ago because I just started working a lot. And I'm also halfway through reading Musashi. And the third book is a compilation of Harlan Ellison stories. If you're into sci-fi, Harlan Ellison is wild. There's a book, a compilation, it's got a great title, The Beast That Shouted Love into the Heart of the World. And it's good fun, really good fun. Some of it is horror, and so if you're sensitive, then, hashtag trigger warning. It is, some of it is disturbing. I like it. Okay. The Courage to be Disliked. I need to read this. It's got good concepts. It's not well written. Which, if you look on Amazon reviews, that's what it's going to tell you. It's not a well written book, but you wade through the poorly written book to get to these nuggets of Adlerian wisdom. I will do a video on this channel about Adler and what we need to take from what he wrote, because it's really, really good. Can we have a list of books to read that you recommend? Yeah, I should maybe write one. I mean, you really, Pete Walker's complex PTSD from surviving to thriving is huge for me. It's the biggest influence in my whole life for psychology. It completely changed the way I looked at the subject. Write the name of the book, says Shadia. Maybe the book will write my name. What do you mean, write the name of the book? I don't know what I mean. Kiryu says, I've reduced my 2020 goals to be simply acknowledged by this beautiful British man. Oh, thank you. Tell me I exist, dear Richard. You exist. Daz says, could you consider a video on narcissistic abuse and long-distance relationships? I could certainly try and cover that for you, sir. Where the hell does come up with? Okay. Any sensible questions for me, guys, that doesn't involve me dissing people, doesn't involve you drama queening and trying to get some controversy going because you're bored? Okay. Richard, will you do a live with me for my FB group, which will launch next week for narcissistic codependency and parenting? Yes. Yes. I will. Send me an email. If anybody wants me to do a live with them for their Facebook group, for their YouTube channel, for their podcast, send an email to helpdesk@spartanlifecoach.info and put the subject header podcast request, even if it's for a Facebook Live. And if you do that, it will certainly come through to me if you do it like that. Ladies and gentlemen, I kind of feel a little bad now. It's my codependency issues kicking in that I went on that rant before. So sorry about that. But I hope that was useful generally. As ever, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for showing up, and it's good to talk to everybody. If I missed your question, I am sorry. I want to say thank you for your time and your attention, which is of high value. And be very careful what you spend those precious resources on, because you don't get them back. And know that I'm grateful that you chose to spend some of that time and some of that attention on me. And I look forward to speaking to you again very soon, which I will. And remember, I said I'm very optimistic. This is a hopeful situation. It is going to get better. So thank you for your time, and I'll speak to you again soon.